Good morning, everybody. My name is Brent Lopez. I'm the manager of Children's Book World in Los Angeles, where we celebrate diversity, knowledge, and enrichment. It's a world where every child sees themselves on our bookshelves. And one of our favorite authors is here today. I am so very excited to be here because you are one of my favorite creative human beings, Dhonielle. How are you today?
I'm so good, and I'm so grateful and happy to be here with you. And thank you for all the love and support. This has
Oh,
been amazing.
we're
I
super
feel honored.
excited. Did I see that you were on national morning television
I
this week?
was I was on CBS this morning, early this morning, so that's why I still have this makeup on my face. Usually it would be gone by now, but I haven't had a chance to get it all washed off.
Well, we're here to talk about your second book in the Conjureverse series, The Memory Thieves. This is your first true big middle grade series, which is just about to be released. Um, Dhonielle Clayton spent most of her childhood under her grandmother's table with a stack of books, something that I have attest to that same sort of experience. She hails from the Washington, D.C. suburbs. She is the New York Times bestselling author of The Marvelers, the Bells series, Shattered Midnight. She co-authored Blackout and Whiteout with a bunch of other incredible authors. Is the co-author of The Rumor Game and the Tiny Pretty Things duology. She's taught secondary school. She's been an elementary and middle school librarian. Books is your life, isn't it, Danielle?
It is. I'm just a nerd, a bookworm. I love books. I am just obsessed with them. It's an obsession, like I'm obsessed with cookies, like I can't stop.
So we're excited to talk to you about this new series. Now, The Memory Thieves is the second book in the series. The first one is The Marvelers. Can you tell us about the Controverse series?
Absolutely. So, The Marvelers is set in a world where there are regular people who are boring, they don't have any magic. And then there are two types of magical people there are marvelers and there are conjurers. But marvelers were so tired of living near non magical people that they decided to leave the regular people and live in the skies. And they have three cities and a school called the Arcanum Training Institute for Marvelous and Uncanny Endeavors, which is my magic school. And these cities and this school move all over the world. However, when they decided to leave the boring, non magical people, they left behind another group, the Conjurers. Their magic is similar to the Marvelers, but a little different. And they're a little suspicious of them, so they did not invite them into the skies with them. And so, what we get to see is a main character whose name is Ella Durand. She comes from New Orleans, Louisiana, and she's the first conjurer to ever be allowed to go to this magic school in the sky because her dad felt like it was not fair that conjure kids were kept out when they're magical too. And so we get to follow her adventures and her new friends that she makes, Bridget and Jason, in book one. And then also we get to follow them into book two. And there are a lot of secrets that she uncovers at the
Mhm.
school, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so book two is unearthing some of those bigger secrets.
Can you talk about the differences between Marvel magic and Conjurer magic? I love the idea of Marvel or magic being something that is manipulated versus Conjurer magic, which is something that is grown naturally, which was really, I just loved that.
You are figuring me out. I love this. But yes, so marvelers believe that people who have magic are marvelous. It's the thing that is, your magic, and it comes from a light within. And they don't manipulate, they just manipulate things that are already there. They use their light to make things, grow or to make things better, or not to make things grow, but to like play with them or to use them. However, conjurers who are descendants from West African marvelers, their magic changed. And it changed for many different reasons. And so it's focused on crossing. And they can actually naturally make things grow. They can naturally cross between life and death. They can do so many other things. And it causes conflict because
Mhm.
they each have a bias towards each other. They each believe that their each other's magic is strange, and there's some real issues. There's some real beef there. So
Yeah. When the first book, before we get into the second book series, Ella is taking on a really heavy load, like the responsibility of a whole community of people that actually don't even want her to have that responsibility. Can you talk about that and what that? feels like for her.
I think that so many of our young people are have to straddle many communities and many different um, responsibilities, and it's really, really hard. And I was a teacher and librarian in East Harlem, New York, and my students were straddling lots of different things, different languages being spoken in their home,
Hmm.
having to travel so far, like they were just between worlds. And I wanted to focus on a kid who found themselves between worlds. I felt like I was a kid that was between worlds as a young person, and what that pressure is placed on those children. When you're the first of a certain group to go into a space, you become a representative of said group. And that's a
Hmm.
pressure and a weight that like falls on your shoulders. And it's so unfair, right? Because if you mess up as the token, as the ambassador, as the bridge, then people use those things against the collective, against the community itself. And
Hmm.
so I wanted to really dig into that topic of like, how scary is it when a kid is the first? How much pressure and how unfair is it? And how can it create a certain kind of pressure cooker for that kid? And how much stress it is, and how kids don't have shouldn't have to feel that way.
No, they shouldn't. I mean, she feels pressure from all the people who are from the Marveler community who are just completely uncomfortable
Mhm.
with her being in this environment. But also, she feels pressure from her own family, her friends, her community within the Conjurers because some of them don't think she should be there either. And I feel I feel her pressure while I'm reading the book. It feels so overwhelming. But she's such a strong character.
She is, because I feel like young people have to be strong now, and I wanted to model a certain kind of strength. Honestly, I was not like Ella as a young person. I was more like Bridget, and a little bit like Jason, anxious and also like, ew, go away, I just want to read my book. And I wasn't a natural leader. And I wanted to talk and showcase a way of a kid leading with kindness and openness and patience, because Ella has a lot of patience that she probably, you know what I mean, shouldn't have to have with people saying things to her, treating her in a particular way. But in order for her to stay safe, she knows that she has to be this way. And I just thought it would be really interesting to use this character as a vehicle, as a model for like how you can be when you find yourself in these
Hmm.
positions. Um, and showing resilience, but also showing humanness, that she doesn't always have a good day. She doesn't always think the right thing or say the right thing. She gets in fights with her friends. She gets in trouble. She gets mischief reports. She has to go to the dean of discipline. She gets detention. She's not perfect, but she has been fortified by her community and by her family to survive. And I wanted to show what that looked like because
Yeah.
community is so important. And that's what I really want to do with these books.
I think it's interesting too because she does get in trouble, but a lot of it is because of something mysterious related to the school itself that has set up all sorts of, they sort of sets you up for failure. Can you talk about that? Like all the rules of this school. This is not your typical magic school. I mean, they're not really giving you freedom to grow.
Right. I mean, in other magical stories, you have protagonists that can run around without, you know what I mean, really being watched. They can do what they want to do. You know, they might get yelled at here and there, but I think that for children, especially children of color, especially queer children, disabled children, there's a focus on them. There is a spotlight on them. And so, and in the Marveler universe, the Marvelers believe in rules. They think that it governs society, there's propriety, there's politeness, there's a way of doing things. You do it the right way. There is the Marvelian way, you know, like,
Hmm.
and I find that a lot of education systems put such emphasis on certain kinds of rules that can sort of lead to the dehumanization of children. And I wanted to sort of discuss sort of like, well, why can't it be a different way? When you create a true global community, that means it's a community of ideas. And that means that we should be able to look at lots of different communities and how they function and find the best way forward to make sure that we all feel comfortable. And the Marvelers don't do that. It's their way or the highway. And so I really wanted to showcase that this is a school with a lot of rules and a lot of categories and order above all else. Because even as a teacher, working at a school like this, I felt like I had to hold my children's feet to the fire, my students, to make them follow these rules. And sometimes I would be enforcing them and being like, why am I doing this? Just because
Hmm.
it's in the handbook. This is like not great. And so I wanted to showcase that and also make a commentary on how so many kids, there are some rules that are unreasonable. So, like, kids, I hear you, like, I see you as a person that enforce rules as a teacher. Sorry, teachers, I love you so much. I was one of you. I'm a librarian, but sometimes we have to keep refining our processes in order to make sure that we're serving all children. And this is a magic school that I wanted to sort of, there's so many secrets, there's so many things covered up, there's so many lies that were told that I wanted to start peeling back on all of those things. And
Mhm.
it starts with the foundation of all of these rules.
Well, I wonder too, from your teaching experience, the mentor characters, this is not just limited to the kids. You have Ella's godmother, who is the first real conjurer teacher within the school as well, that they know about. And then there's also Master Ji Thakur, who is such a great character. But they're both dealing with things. It's not just limited to the kids, right? And did you have any of your own personal experiences as a teacher to put into those adult characters being sort of kept down from their teaching?
Absolutely. I am channeling how I felt as a teacher in a large school network where you get a manual of all the things you're supposed to be doing and not doing, and how it sort of can keep you from interacting and engaging with your students in like the most authentic and natural and human way, and also being able to teach the way you think is effective. So yes, Aunt Sarah and Madame Baptiste has a lot of curriculum oversight because she's coming in and teaching Conjure 101 and teaching all these marvelers about the Conjure universe. And she has people watching her. And I wanted to talk to teachers and let them say, I see you. I see what you have to do to get through to your kids and how
Mm-hmm.
frustrating it can be in academia to get caught up in all of these people sort of in your mix, right? And Master G was just sort of like, I was channeling teachers that were just my lighthouses when I was growing up. The ones that were like, when the door closes, you can breathe. We're going to do our work. We're going to talk through things, but you're safe here. You're okay here. I wasn't a perfect kid. So I understand when you're not a perfect kid in my classroom, and it's always a clean slate. And I think Master G in that character was supposed to be a reminder to young people that there are teachers that come into your life that can be your lighthouse and your safe space and your harbor, and to hold on to those mentors because they have so much to teach you. And those mentors are never perfect, so that you don't have to feel the need to be perfect. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do with him. At least
Without giving anything away too. I
right.
could, but because I kids are still reading it, but Master Ji has his own history with this school, and which leads me into a discussion about every good magic school has to have a supervillain of some sort. And in this one, we meet a person named Gia.
Yes.
Can you talk about a little bit about Gia?
Absolutely. Gia is probably my favorite character because I like villains more than I like heroes, which makes me terrible, but And when I was concepting Marvelers, I always thought villains believe that they are the heroes of their own story. And how interesting would it be if we're talking about, if I'm like fundamentally talking about what is good, what is evil, how do children and young people parse out the gray? Let's follow the villain as well. Let's see what she's up to. Let's see her thought process because she's not always wrong. Her methods aren't so great, but she's not always wrong. And I wanted to talk to young people about thinking in binaries can also get you in trouble. And sometimes conflict is way more nuanced than that. And so the conflict that this community is facing, which is opening up to make sure that they make space for conjurers and right some of the wrongs of the past, mean that there's good and bad on both sides. And so Gia is a former student of the magic school. She's been in jail for a long time for a thing that happened, and she breaks out of jail. Just going to let everyone know that. I know it's a spoiler, you're still reading, but like, come on, you know that. You meet her, she's got to make mischief. Um, and she's got some scores to settle, and she's got a bigger agenda. She doesn't like a lot of these rules. She doesn't like how the Marvelers have treated the Conjurers or have treated her or treat each other. So she's a bone to pick. She's a real big chip on her shoulder. And
Yeah.
she's trying to put her life back together and figure out what happened all those years ago.
Yeah, I was sort of I thought of Superman 2, the movie,
Mhm.
where the villains were locked away in like a plate of glass that they were floating in space with, and that sort of felt that I was so intrigued by the prison system that she was put into that you created. I thought that was great, but the real villain here is something that we exists in the world today, every day in schools across the country, the idea that we want to hide what other people's identity and culture is. The fear of somebody else's identity and culture is taking away from your own. It seems like so much of that is central to why the Marvelers don't want to accept Ella at their school. Could you talk about that?
Sure. I was doing some deep thinking about global communities and societies and how we build community when we're different from each other, right? And whose rules get to rule the roost? Who gets to set what is appropriate, what is not appropriate, what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, how we are going to behave, right? And I wanted to have some deep, deep discussions about that because I think that our next generation, our young people, will get to remake some of these rules. So it's like, how can we make sure we're making space for others when I find at times in global communities, there's a dominant group that wants to tell everyone else what to do and how to believe and what to
Mm-hmm.
think, and they want to erase the things that make them different and say and exist in this sort of, colorblind space or this space where it's like, no, these are the binary rules about gender and
Mm-hmm.
about everything. And I wanted to challenge that and have young people start thinking about, well, who made those rules? Why? Can't we do something different? Can't we make more space? Can't we change? Because if we don't have the possibility to change, we're never going to survive. And young people should be irreverent and push so that we do change. And so I wanted to make sure that Ella had a lot of friction with some of these rules that were coming up. And so does Bridget, her best friend, because
Mm-hmm.
Bridget is a person who's outside of the Marveler universe too. She didn't know she was a Marveler, which you'll find out in book one. And she's struggling too. And she has a lot of questions about these rules and why these people behave the way they do. They just sit at different privilege axes.
Yeah.
And so I also wanted to sort of dive into that and just talk about how do we make our own communities feel safer, bigger, more inclusive, but through the lens of a magic school where these are all magical people. They're supposed to be better than the people who don't have magic,
Yeah.
but they're not.
Bridget was such an interesting character because initially when you're introduced to her, it's hard to like her behavior, and particularly because of the way she relates to Ella. But as you go through the book and into the second book, you really understand her in so many ways, and um, all of the all of the characters are so great. So, talking about the global community, you must have had a blast doing research for all of the different kinds of cultural magics around the world, but also food. Like, there's, I was like, I want to eat in that lunchroom because, like, all of this delicious food is flying by. Talk about all of that and how you created all of that.
Sure. I think it all came out of the fact that when I was a teacher and librarian, my lunchroom was full of kids from all different places all around the world, first and second generation. The types of food they were bringing in their lunchbox was like delicious. It was just everything. And, and then I thought about when I went to school and I was one, you know what I mean, one of three kids who looked like me, and there were just very few kids from different communities. And seeing my Korean friend get like bullied about what was in her lunchbox. And I thought, oh no, like I need a magic school where there is food for everyone. Food that feels good, food that's exciting, food that makes you want to try it. So I wanted to make it all magical and funny and ridiculous and absurd so that if this was a real place, maybe kids from other communities would try other food because it's like, who doesn't want to pluck a sushi roll from a constellation of sushi flying around the lunchroom, right? Or who doesn't want to see all the dim sum carts and take some of the dumplings who are dancing and seeing what kind of music they're dancing to, right? I wanted to make it fun, mischievous, but also introduce different foods so that kids could research, what are these different there's a curry truck. what are these different kinds of curry? Where do they all come from? I wonder what they all taste like, to invite curiosity and also comfort. So that in every single book in this series, I go and I hunt for different kinds of food to showcase so that I can continue to build out the tapestry of humanity, which I think telling our history through food is so exciting that we all eat such different kinds of food from all over the world. It's all delicious and cool and interesting, and it's a nice entry point into
Yeah.
culture.
I just talked last week with Grace Lynn about her new book,
Oh,
Chinese Menu, with all the folk tales. It was so great. And
I
I was
love you some
thinking,
grace.
yeah, they were really, yeah, it was really great. Um, so I'd like to talk a little bit about Jason, but Jason's magic, but also in relation to the idea that everybody has a marvel that they are sort of assigned to, they find out how they experience magic and what those different experiences are. So if you could explain that and talk to kids about that.
Absolutely. So, you know, in one of the big things in magic school books as a trope is that everyone gets sorted into their communities and they get their magic and they start refining what it is that is special about them. And in my universe, that is what your marvel is. It's the thing that's marvelous about you. But instead of knowing that at the beginning of the book, they needed to learn more about all of the different kinds of marvels and their categories, the paragons of marveling. And so I wait till the very end. And then at the end of the book, we also want to see what is the light inside of you and what does it show? What is marvelous about it? So there is a marvel machine and there is
Mhm.
a elixir of light and there are all of these other things that help you find what is marvelous about you and help you sharpen where you're going to be going on your journey. It's sort of like when you go to college and university, if you do, you sort of take all the different kinds of classes until you figure out what exactly you want to focus on. I wanted to do it a little differently and let everyone get a taste of all the different marvels and the different paragons of marveling until they get to figure out what is marvelous about them at the very end. So you have to wait to the very end of the book. I do get letters from kids being like, man, I wish I knew at the beginning, but I'm like, what's the fun in that? You gotta finish the book, so then you know.
Yeah, I think, and they're also interesting. There's another element of it also, though, that is parental expectation, which is a big thing within many families of kids that are out there, where you're expected to carry on a tradition that is already in your family. And many of the kids experience that, right?
Absolutely. I just thought it would be real. That is a real concern. As a teacher, I remember my students' parents calling, being like, "I want my kid to be a scientist, so I want them to have extra math and science homework, or this or that." And like parents have the best intentions, and they want to guide their kids down certain paths, either following in their footsteps or going and doing something that they didn't get to do. But I wanted to talk about that, but also offer choice. So, yes, the Marvel machine can tell you what is marvelous about you, but you do get a choice. You can choose something else that you're excited about or interested in to channel your light towards. But I did want to be honest and be like, there are some parents that are pesky parents that want their, kids to follow in the family footsteps and have marvels that are just similar to theirs. They might have family businesses that they need run in the magical
Hmm.
universe. They have, they just have their own desires, just like any parent for a kid. So I didn't think that having magic would absolve the pesky parents from
Yes,
pushing their agenda.
it certainly doesn't. Now, constructing this world, and the idea of being in the clouds. There's so many different wonderful inventions that you've created for this. How did you go about that? And did you have like certain things that you just knew had to be there, and then other things that you sort of discovered along the way?
Absolutely. So when I was building this magic school, I knew that it couldn't be in one country. If I promise you a global magic school, that means it's not associated with one country because I want every kid to be able to get an invitation. My students were asking for a magic school book where they would get an invitation to. And some of the bigger ones, we won't name them, they didn't have them for my kids in New York City. And so an invitation wasn't going to make it all the way over here. So I thought, how unfair is this? Every kid who is magical in the world should be able to go. So I knew that it needed to be in the sky so that it wasn't associated with one particular
Hmm.
country community. There wouldn't be any of those political lines. And then it travels all over the world so that we can get different areas represented. Also, the school never looks the same twice. So each year, the school changes. The constellations change so we can learn different languages. We can learn different histories of how we have carved up the sky to make sense of our big, messy human experience. And so that was very important to me that if I promise you a global magic school, that I deliver on that, not just in name only. So that was at the very beginning. I knew that it would be moving around, and the sky felt very, very easy to me and fun because, like, why not? Why not move it around that way? And the other part of your question was about the research that went into it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Or just yeah, create how you went about creating it. So.
Yes. So I make maps. And so I made a map and I decided for every single year where the school would be located and what its aesthetic would be and why, and sort of did research. I stumbled upon this beautiful sort of treasure trove website that carved up the sky, talking about how ancient cultures viewed the stars and what they called them. And it went through all of the global communities that they've been doing research, filling it in, and you get to change the view and see, okay, if you lived in ancient China, this is what the sky would look like and what they would call the different lunar mansions and all of that. And it went all over the world. And I thought, how cool is that? The sky connects all of us as a governing
Mhm.
principle. We can go outside and look up and see what's there. And I thought that is my metaphor for globalness. We see the sky, or we experience the sky, or can, whether or not we can feel it, right, smell it. And if we're in the sky as a magic school moving all over the world, then the stars can be our guiding lights. And so that's how it all came together when I was thinking about it. And it kept me out of one country or another so that I didn't have to worry about that.
I love that you love maps. I can actually just sit at after work and go to a map and just open it up as I just continue to explore and go through everything else. And I remember one of my first reading experiences was The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, both of them having that wonderful map, that sort of set the tone for everything that was going to come later in those fantasy stories. And maps are such an essential part of this book because hidden secret maps may hold the clues to the whole foundation of this story. Um, where did your love for maps come from?
I'm a nerd, and so I loved The Hobbit, and my dad was so into sci-fi and fantasy. I mean, he still is. And so to me, the map was so exciting. You open the book and you're like, we're going on a journey. And I thought, a map to me feels adventurous, and I love an adventure. So I remember printing off MapQuest. Those are the old days. And I love old maps and looking at them, and I've just always been fascinated with them. So every one of my fantasy universes, I always get a map. The Marvelers universe has so many maps. You go on my website, and there will be more maps to come in all of the books because it's just like a thing that I'm between that and newspapers. They're my two little things that I'm obsessed with, and that I have been obsessed with since I was a little girl. So I'm like, give me a map, and I want it. I don't have a sense of direction, so I can't
Uh-huh.
follow the map, but I like making them. I'm a terrible illustrator, but I would draw every single map for all of my worlds. Um,
That's so interesting.
mhm.
And there, you've got the bell. So, what is it about New Orleans, Louisiana, the South, that attracts you so much?
Yes, if you see a trend or a theme, there is, I pull from my childhood. And so my grandparents are from Mississippi, one set of them, and we would go down to Mississippi all the time, and we would go
Mm.
to Alabama and Louisiana and New Orleans, when we're at the farm, we would go over there. And it was a time when it electrified my imagination. New Orleans is such a weird, strange place that is haunting. And I think as a little girl, seeing it, smelling it, experiencing it electrified something in my brain that I return to it often in my fiction, because I can't seem to like figure it out, and it feels like a fun puzzle. And there are certain places on this planet that just excite me. And I think because of my childhood, and I wanted to make that area of the world feel magical, like how I felt it when I was a young person going. So, yes, New Orleans haunts me. Um, there'll be, yes, I write about that area a lot. I'll be writing about it again coming soon. Uh, but it makes for a great place for stories.
Oh, it sure does. I mean, I can understand it too because you have as a little kid, if you were there, I mean, all of the music, the smells, the delicious foods,
Food,
but you also have the cemeteries
yes,
and
the dead above
the,
ground.
yes, and then the celebrations of death as not a end stop, but as something else entirely. And I do mean celebration. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that could inspire you as a writer. I
Right. So
understand that.
being an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old and coming to a city like that, and I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., which is very stuffy and horses and government, to like a place that has all this like vibrantness, the colors, the sounds, the smells, but also a darkness, right? There is death, but there is also sort of you see the other side, you see the vices, you see other kinds of things. And I couldn't make sense of it, but it left an impression. So I think it's haunting me. We'll see how long it haunts me if I move into a new, something new. But like for now, it really haunted me. And I really wanted Ella's family to showcase how I felt when I was her age going to
Yeah.
that city and how beautiful and cool it could be.
Now,
Magic.
we're going to continue on with Ella, I'm hoping. I mean, everything will be able to go through different periods with her in this series. What were well, you don't have to, I mean, oh, well, actually, I do want to talk about the idea of the magic school books because we've had them growing up. There's different types of magic schools that we've experienced. But let's talk about the idea that some people may criticize to say, oh, no, 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 you're just, doing a duplicate of a magic school that already exists. But it didn't exist because it didn't exist with these people, with these experiences. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Thank you for this question because I don't actually get to talk about this often. I get a lot of hate mail from people who love Harry Potter, thinking that I have copycatted her or whatnot. And I keep thinking, like, I have a master's in children's literature. I read the entire canon of children's books before I started writing. So there were magic schools before there was Hogwarts. And the magic schools I
Absolutely.
grew up reading was the magic school from Jill Murphy's The Worst Witch series, Miss Cackle's Academy for Witchcraft. So there are others, Diana Wynne Jones. Like I can give you a list. I can give you a
Yeah.
lecture actually on the magic school trope. So this was the one that takes up all the air in the room, and it's the one that casts the largest shadow. And you know, her world is wonderful, right? But it's time for us to move on. It's time
Yeah.
for us to move into a world where every kid gets to get an invitation, every kid gets to have a safe space for them, and is considered, right? It is consideration, right? Like Ella is a main character that comes from a particular community, but in the magic school, there is something for everyone. I wanted to set a table where Ella is centered, but everyone gets to come to eat. And the other magic schools that I've listed, and there are others, don't set a table for all children. There are so many children left in the margins, so many children that don't get to eat and don't get an invitation. And it is unfair. And for us, we're going to lose a generation of readers if we do not cater to them and make sure that they see their families, their communities, their languages, their food, their customs, their communities reflected. We need heroes rooted in culture. And it doesn't mean that these books are for one group, they're for everyone. But it just means that we have to consider who gets to come to eat at this table. And so I wanted to have a new conversation and provide the future of Magic School, one where we have everyone in different ways, right? And not to knock on those other books. We can love them, we can read them, but we also have to make sure that we're providing new places, new refuges for our young people. And this new magic school, it's time. And also,
Yeah.
it's okay that we can move on from Hogwarts. It's okay.
Absolutely. No, and I've spent 50 years of reading books and 50 plus years of reading books. And all through my childhood into my teen and college years, I read books that frequently, quite often, did not have anything to do with who I was or how I experienced the world. But I managed to love those books and
Yes.
still be able to get through life. And I think that everybody is capable of being able to read a book from somebody else's lived experience and be able to enjoy it for that story and for that character. It does not have to represent your own personal lived experience when you read a book.
Exactly. We've made it. We grew up. I read The Hobbit. I read all of these books. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you know, Norton Juicer's The Phantom Toll Booth, all of Roald Dahl, all I read it all. And I'm here and none of those characters reflected me. However, I think that our next generation of readers is requiring more of us
Yeah.
to stay engaged with literature and to keep our population literate. We need to make sure that we are setting the right tone and table. And that means letting some things go so we can move on to new things that open.
Yeah.
I think I'm feeling particularly miffed about this topic because when you go on television and you talk about magic school, all you do is you get hate from people who have not let Hogwarts go. So I am in the midst of all the hate
Yeah.
mail and hate messages. So it is one of those things where I'm like, it's okay, you can love a thing, but we can also invite new people into something new.
That is one thing. This is a good message. I think I would like to share it with kids today because it's something that's really important to me because we all experience it on social media. It is entirely possible to just make a post about something you like without talking about something that you dislike at the same time. So
Yes.
many times people want to have to say, I love this, but I don't like this.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You could
No.
just talk about what you love and the things that you love. You don't have to add any of the other dislike stuff because it's really unnecessary.
We have enough negativity in our world. Let's stick to the positive. I want to talk about that I like chocolate chip cookies. I don't have to talk about the cookies I don't like because somebody else might like those cookies. I'm just going to talk about chocolate chip cookies with the right distribution of chocolate chips and put a scoop of ice cream on it. You don't have to put a scoop, but I'm going to put a scoop on mine. And I don't have to dog anybody who doesn't like that. And so I just wish that we could on social media move towards the positive. But we know the negative is what drives things.
That's right. As we begin to wrap up, I want one quick question, and it involves cookies. When you're writing, what mood do you have to create for yourself? Do you have a plate full of specifically numbered chocolate chip cookies next to you? Do you have music playing?
So I sometimes I'll play music, but it'll only be instrumental music because if I start singing, then I'll start writing the actual words of the music versus the words I'm supposed to be writing. So I'll listen to a lot of soundtracks from different movies that I like How to Train Your
Mhm.
Dragon, or like different animes, or even just orchestra. Very boring,
Mhm.
but it just creates a nice melody as I'm working, so I can get into the zone. When I'm snacking. Cookies are a little greasy, so what I do is if I can get through my work, I can have the cookie. But while I'm working, I'll have popcorn as long as it's not too buttery. And I will snack on like almonds or some sort of cashews, things like that that I know won't make my keyboard yucky. And then I'll drink tea or water, and sometimes some ginger ale if I need like a burst of sugar. But it's really about giving myself the treat for when I finish my work. So I'm like, okay, if you just get through it, you can get the thing you want, which is the plate of cookies that are waiting for you in the other room. I can't have them until I finish my chapter.
We're wrapping up here, but I want to talk about one last thing, which is that I love. You tag a lot of your friends in these books. A lot of your friends are my friends, so I was like, oh. Not everybody's going to know that, but did you have fun doing that? And talk about that.
The reason why I did this, so in the world of the Marvelers, there are some names that might seem familiar to you, and they are actually real people who are real writers who have books. So I was the type of kid when I was reading, I would go research names because I was nosy and I just wanted to know, like, was there anything about this character that's real? Because I get a lot of questions from kids about, like, are these real people? So I made some of the people in the Marvelers universe real. Also, it's my little sneaky librarian thing to do. It's like, yes, go research, go Google that name, and then you'll find more books to read. So it was my little way of creating my own little magical sort of like chain letter where it's like, oh, this person, oh, Kwame Mbalia, author of the Chris Strong series. He's a professor at the school. Oh no, he's real. I need to read his books, right? And then we just keep going down. And I just thought also I like to troll my friends. That's the perfect part of when you become a writer is that all your friends and family, you can put them in your books and you can like
Yeah,
make them little love letters and like characters that are awesome. So that was part of it too, just to troll them a little bit, just like my dedication. It's nothing
that's
if you
great.
can't be pesky.
Danielle, it has been wonderful speaking with you today about the book. I always love talking to you about books. It's always so enlightening. Any last words for the kids today?
Sure. I hope that you're excited to come to magic school. It's a lot of fun, but also that maybe you might want to be a writer, that you might read something and find something in this universe, in the Conjureverse that excites you, that maybe you might want to use your imagination to become a storyteller. There's lots of different ways to be a storyteller. You don't just have to write books, you can draw them, you can do comics, you can do webtoons, you can write your own TV show, all of it, all of this. I just want you to use your imagination to come up with the most amazing things because it all lives within your brain already. It's just learning how to put it, get it out of you, and share it with other people. So I'm hoping that seeing me and reading, hopefully, The Marvelers and The Memory Thieves might excite you to write your own story or write your own character into my universe.
Thank you so much. This is really a great series. You guys are going to love reading this. I was loving it. There's so much action and suspense, and I can't wait for you all to read it. Thank you all, and we will see you again soon for another book talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, perfect. Recording.